Hello and welcome to the W Your Freelancing podcast. I'm your host, Zach Swinehart, and today you're going to learn some really nifty things that came up in a conversation with Bo Peter-Lanen, who's been on the podcast before. If you've seen him, he's been on maybe once or twice. We were just chatting today randomly because he's in the 200K freelancer course that I run, and he was we were kind of between cohorts, like we're at the tail end of the previous cohort. I haven't launched the next one yet because I want to finish up this software product that I made for the students, and I'm so close. I want to get it done before I open the doors again. So it's been kind of quiet in the beginner calls lately because most people are in the marketing section, and today it was just Bo and I, and we were just chatting, and it ended up being really cool. We were chatting, and I was like, gosh, can I put this on the podcast? Because there's so many gems here that the world must know. So here we are. You're going to see Bo's gems that the world must know. So in today's episode, we basically dug into one of the most common challenges I see freelancers run into when starting to scale, whether they're scaling like a productized agency or just a regular old agency. If they try to hire what I would call the wrong way, and I'm speaking from experience because it's not just I see freelancers doing it, it's what I did as well. For the longest time, until like maybe a year ago, I would try to scale up and try to hire in this way that Bo and I talk about today. And it was just really painful. I really avoided it. And to be fair, I don't like hiring now. I don't like doing test projects and stuff. Like, it's still a pain either way. But this new framework I've found that I referenced to Bo that is in the course that I teach, it basically takes a lot of the pain and unpredictability out of that hiring process. So we're going to dig into that. We're going to dig into that, what I would call the forced hire scaling mistake that I see a lot of freelancers make, and how to fix it. Once you fix this, it's basically just a small tweak in your process for hiring and for scoping out projects. You'll be able to hire new teammates with a higher success rate, take a lot less time, and do it proactively, or at least do it when you don't have a fire that needs to be put out and you need to hire someone to put out that fire, because I feel like that's the hardest time to reliably hire somebody. More than time or money, I would say the biggest impact of this approach to scoping out test projects and hiring is going to be energy. So like, to me, the open loop of like all these phone calls and the stress and all the pressure, wondering if somebody is going to work out or if they're going to drop the ball or if they're going to flake out, to me, that's very stressful. It takes a lot of mental bandwidth for me. Whereas this approach that I'm going to be sharing with Bo and now you, it's more like building a system. And you can put anyone through this system, and where it gets really exciting, and this is why I had to share it with you, where it gets really freaking exciting is when this system that you make for teaching potential hires about whatever they need to know to do a trial project with you can double up as marketing fuel for your business. So Bo has a term he drops called feeding two birds with one scone, because I felt bad about killing these birds with stones. And we talk about how you can feed so many different birds with one scone if you do it right. So we talk about how this document for hiring can be used as a lead magnet for like a high scaled kind of thing, like a pre-recorded lead magnet that he could put on a site, or as a higher touch, quote, quote, lead magnet that's like more manually fulfilled. That's what it means to be higher touch, that he could use for like something like cold outreach or direct sales or whatever. And I feel like there were another couple birds fed by scones. You'll have to listen to find out what they were. Another cool thing you're going to learn in this episode, or get to see in this episode rather, is just a case study from a freelancer who's building a cool business. Bo's delivering a lot of value to clients, and he has a lot of like, I don't know if you'd call it a proprietary mechanism of delivery, but he's delivering cool service. He's getting paid well, and he has the foundation for growing a productized, scalable business. And in case you haven't heard the term, I'll just clarify now. When I say productized, what I mean is having a way that you deliver value to your clients that is consistently articulated from client to client, like solves a similar problem and is fulfilled in a pretty similar way. It's never going to be some template that you just copy and paste and you press some one button and the AI does all of it. If it is, you're probably not going to get paid very well, because like if there's no human in the middle, the amount of value you deliver is very limited. But if you can get enough scale that like the human special secret sauce from your brain's only taken 10 to 30% of the delivery, then you can get a lot of scale because you can do 3x to 10x the number of projects you can do now if you took a third to a tenth of the amount of time. It's weird math, but think about it. It makes sense. So you'll get to see that. You'll get to see someone in the weeds doing that. I'm really excited to see where Bo is going to grow to in the next year or so. And then finally, the final cool thing you're going to get is a model for how you can articulate the things that you do for clients in a way that makes it just like blatantly clear to them why these things are super valuable and why they should hire you right the frick now to do those things and get them really excited to work with you. So without further ado, let's just jump on into the episode. And I guess the final thing I should say is where you can go follow Bo. We didn't do a proper podcasting thing. It was just an accidental podcast. So we didn't do all the normal podcast intro. But if you want to get in Bo's little sphere and see what he's up to, his website is blanen.com. So the letter B and then LAANEN.com. It's his name. So if you're mad about it being hard to spell, just tell his parents. It's not my fault. It's not his fault. And I think we're good to just jump in. If you're listening and you want to get on the wait list for 200K Freelancer for the next time we open, be aware we have sold out all the 2 times we've opened so far. So if you want in, might sell out this next time, might be good to get in. You can go to dyf.link/200KF, like 200K Freelancer. dyf.link/200KF to get on the wait list, and you'll be able to enroll before everybody else so that if it sells out, you already got in. So let's jump in. See you in a second. Hello, Bo. How's it going?
How do you do? Good. Busy times. How are you?
What times? Good times? Busy times?
Good.
Busy times.
Good.
With all the new clients?
Good and busy times. Yeah, with the new client. The last time I was on the call, I just told them, and that was pretty since then, just very much been focused on them and onboarding them and onboarding new part-time freelancers to work on the team and all that stuff. So they've had flurry of hiring and onboarding and getting shit going. Yeah.
How's it been going? Like, how is the onboarding of the new team members going?
Like hit and miss. I found an awesome project manager based in the Philippines, and she's just kicking ass and taking names and been becoming a really integral part of my work. So that's been awesome. And then the misses have been more in finding a solid ads manager to work with. I onboarded someone, and then like a day later she's like, actually, like, now that I understand your work a little bit more, I don't think I had the bandwidth. And then I found someone new, and they're having personal issues and not really coming through. So I'm again looking for someone, but it's never great when you have to go through 3 or 4 people to find somebody. But at least so far, it's I'm really looking for people that I can work with for the long run, and that's how I position the conversations. And so far not hitting the jackpot there for the ads managers, but at least the project manager has been good, and the web developer has been really good. So
nice. And
do you 2 out of 3 positions, so going well.
Do you do trial projects, or what's your like hiring, interviewing, onboarding process look like?
So far it's been like Trixie, my project manager, will do an initial call with them to sort of filter through a bunch of people. Then I'll have a call if upon her recommendation. And just because I kind of have needed I needed the ads managers come in and start helping me as soon as possible. I've been skipping the trial project and sort of seeing that first week or 2 as the trial, so to speak. The latest ads manager has been on board for 2 weeks now and hasn't actually implemented anything over the last week. So that's why I'm now looking for somebody else again.
Okay. Do you want some ideation or feedback on on this concept?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I might have mentioned it before. I just dropped a link to the part of the course. So something that was a real game changer for me with hiring, like I used to hire the way that you're describing it. Um, it's almost like reactive or like ramshackle. Like, you've got this work that needs to be done, so you need to just try to put them on it. But it kind of, at least in my experience, it's like paradoxically, or maybe not paradoxically, maybe it's quite obvious if you step back, but in any case, it tends to just be way harder than if I just did the thing myself to try to hire a new person and put them on the thing, because it's so much pressure to implement and deliver. And it's stressful for me because if it's for a real client project, like my reputation's on the line. And if this person's faffing about or sucking and now we're lagging on our delivery, that leaves a bad impression and stuff. And so the thing that's a real game changer for me is treating it like you would a good chat GPT automation or whatever. You like, if you want to get good AI output, better than anyone that you need to spend the time dialing the prompt. And so similarly, when I started treating hiring this way, where it's like, okay, instead of it being this like intuitive process of talking to the person and trying to determine if they're a unicorn, special, magical person, instead of that, just being like, okay, I'm going to architect a flow that if they pass this series of like tests, there's a high chance they're going to be sorted, and assume that it will take 4 or 5 or 10 or 15 people going through the process to actually find the winner, but that it doesn't take so much like Herculean effort as the style of hiring you're doing now, because you're just putting them through assets you already made, and you can have your project manager like evaluate a lot of their output, so it doesn't have to come on you. Things like that might be worth thinking about if you haven't done it yet. I don't know what an ads trial project would look like, but probably a good first project would like be pure strategy. Like you have them formulate some kind of plan, and that you're looking for them to speak to certain kinds of things. I've been thinking about this with devs as I work on LeadTables more, because when I first started, and tell me if you feel like I'm rambling and it's not relevant, but
No, it's good.
Okay. When I first started, I had only worked with like JavaScript, which is like a very lazily typed language compared to what I'm using now, which is TypeScript. And most bigger projects would have these like strongly typed languages, as they're called. But back then I was just a noob, and I made, just little shitty ramshackle apps. So I didn't know how big a video it would be later. And when present day Zach has to edit February Zach's code right now, I'm like, oh, fucking this guy, such a shitty coder. And so probably if I were onboarding devs, the things I would do as early trial projects would be just like maybe send them some file that has some poor typing conventions or something. I'd say like, what do you think, if anything, is wrong with this file? Or what would you change, if anything, just to see if they say the things I want? And so you might do something like that. Like you could have a campaign that you've already done, and you show the post-mortem of it, you show the copy, you show the images, you show the metrics, and you're like, what would you change about this, or what would you try? Like things like that. Anyway, if you haven't been through that part of the course, you might get some ideas in there. What are your thoughts on this whole flow? Have you thought about doing it before?
Yeah. So when I've hired previously, and have like a little bit more time, you could say, like what I mean by that is like I don't need someone to jump in right away.
Yeah, you can go slow to make the processes and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Then I'm definitely going about it that way, I would say. But because of like the shit, I need somebody, I have been just pushing through really quickly and trying to like crossing my fingers and hoping that the person who I'm hiring is going to be a good fit. And so yeah, I think that probably the way for me to, I would say that I think AI has made this a little bit more challenging, in that I think what I would do in the past is write a short brief about the actual client I'm working with without mentioning client name and stuff like that. And then say, hey, yeah, how would you approach this? And um, I think when I've done this most recently, some of it was very clear who was using AI sort of as like, hey, give me an answer. And then some more clearly demonstrated their expertise. But in both cases, I didn't get somebody to respond in a way that I was like, wow, boom, nailed it on the head. Like they really thought about this. And I kind of get it from the freelancer's perspective because I'm looking to find someone who's only working like 10 hours a week for me, right? Um, they're just trying to like maybe erroneously, get through the process as quickly as possible. So I think what that means for me is that I have to think about it a little bit more clearly in terms of what it is that I want them to do.
Hmm, that makes sense. Are
And
you
therefore create a trial project that's, or if even like how would you handle this strategy in a bit more of a, yeah, holistic way, I guess.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Something that's worked for me with that is like, and it doesn't work perfectly. Some people are always going to be lazy, but if the first little micro engagement is paid and people know that they don't have to rush through the first reply, which on platforms like Upwork especially is hard because most hiring decisions on Upwork happen within 24 hours. So freelancers kind of feel like they have to bang out the response like as soon as possible before you hire somebody
Yeah.
else. But something that might be worth considering, like I've had good success with having people record me a Loom video, like explaining why they said what they said and stuff, which I think last time I hired somebody was before AI was as ubiquitous, like it was a year ago or something. So AI is different now. And I feel like that would be even more important now to to know that they didn't just copy and paste from ChatGPT. But
Yeah.
having people know they're going to be compensated for spending like an hour, I think is also a helpful thing. Because if they think it's unpaid and they're just risking it, it's like, well, fuck, I'm just going to try to spend as little time as possible, which is kind of antithetical to what you're trying to do. I don't know if you've thought about that.
Yeah, this actually, as you were talking, gives me I think a good trial project actually to run because the part of my process and part of like the order that I was formulating with 200KS as well was or is to validate messaging. Uh, as a quick recap for you, what am looking to do is use atomic ad testing to like essentially test out a bunch of different like it could be like the ICP call out. Like, what would you say on image text to be like to make it really obvious to that person that this ad is for them?
Nice.
So like sometimes we'll use different like for my coaching business, when I first tested this out for myself, it was really simple because I was looking to work with like achieving overthinkers. So I just said, "Hey, overthinker," and so people could very much like resonate with that. They're like, "Oh, this is for me," or it's not. And then the people who engage are more likely to be a good fit. Um, and so there's that we're testing. Then it's like problem statements, like where that'll be like, "Hey, overthinker, do you experience this?" Right, and then we'll have 15 different things. And then the next step is a lead magnet tiles. Anyway, that's all to say is that like most recently I ran such a test, and I'm at the stage like ideally today or tomorrow I go through the data that we collected and make a decision in terms of um what lead magnet to go build now. So anyway, I think the test could be uh, here's the exported data. Here's the sort of here are the creatives or the language, the messaging that we're testing. Based off of this data, what would you recommend to go test now? And then that could be a
Yeah.
paid test. And like that is like sort of the next level in terms of what I need an ads manager to do or ideally do. Uh, and finding someone like that would be who can look at that data and give me a solid here's what I would do next or whatever. Or I think that could be a really good actually.
And even the lead magnet one would be cool. An idea that I got while you were talking, by the way, I think it's just us here, so this is just us jamming, um, is that number one, I want to know your process because it sounds cool, like for my own business. And then what that spawned is that this concept of, I assume from what I asked in the past when we talk about atomic ad testing, that it's like it's not a Bo Peter thing. It's a known thing, the concept of atomic ad testing, right?
It's so far I haven't found a single ads manager though. It's like, oh, atomic ad testing. Yeah, duh.
But is it like a
Um,
proprietary thing you made up, or it's like a thing you subscribe to that you learned from someone else? Obviously, the
yeah,
principles are ubiquitous, but like, how much of this is your secret sauce versus doing a thing
it
you were
it's
taught?
yeah, it's something that I was taught, but not something that um is highly known. And I think the reason for that, especially with the type of ad managers that I'm looking to engage, is that most likely they're often just thrown into a project right away with like given the creative assets and say and told like go build a campaign out for me.
And
But go ahead.
well, you can go ahead.
Um, so I have like yeah, I've already written out SOPs on how to do this. They could be a little bit better, but I know how to do that. Um, so I think it still feels pretty secret saucy to both managers and clients that I'm working with.
And how
But when I
much
explain it to
of
clients, they're like, "Whoa, sick! I love this. I
nice?
need this."
Yeah, I mean, that sounds cool to me.
Yeah.
With the way you're implementing it, how much is your secret sauce beyond the way you're taught? So, for example, the thing that is not the secret sauce, the thing you were taught is you do this atomic ad testing, you test these little different things because you can get insights by doing these micro zoomed in tests that added together, you can achieve your vague goals with. And you, as Bo Peter, probably use this in a lot of different ways. So you mentioned that you use this to decide what lead magnets to create. Maybe you use this for their like sales page copy, their homepage positioning, probably all sorts of shit.
Mhm.
The all sorts of shit category, the various things you do with the insights from atomic testing, how much of that is like your proprietary way of implementing a framework versus like you're also taught to do this so that you can decide on lead magnets, so you can decide on page?
Yeah, I mean, so the last time I was on a call with y'all, I think for one of the other folks here that was trying to figure out their ICP, like I had demoed like how I'd go about doing that research with Perplexity and some other stuff. And so in this case, I am piecing together various things that I've learned over the years to create that holistic process. And so that's definitely like secret sauce, not something I've necessarily been taught as just one process.
Perfect.
Um, yeah.
So the reason I ask all that is so I have one more context question, and then I'll give you the idea I got. I just want to make sure it's a good idea. The other thing I wanted to ask is, so if I said, Bo, Peter, I'm a top performing coach person, why should I do this atomic ad testing? So like you say that I'm going to get ideas for lead magnet or whatever. Like, what do I get out of it? You do this so that blank.
Yeah. So we go through this process so that by the end of it, you know not just one, but like five potential lead magnets that you could build that because of the atomic ad testing that we've done, you're basically guaranteed that when we start running these lead magnets to your ideal audience on Meta or any platform really, that you're going to have uh, low cost leads, low cost per clicks, and lots of people filling this in, right? And the natural next step after we have somebody become a lead is that we're using the learnings we've done from all of the atomic ad testing to validate this. The process validates your messaging, and we learn how to talk to your ICP, right? So by the end of the atomic ad testing process, you have validated audiences to run tests to or to run to on Meta. You have a clear lead magnet and a list of lead magnets you could build next. Because ideally, in an ideal world, you do have multiple lead magnets. You have a messaging doc, right? For reference, it says this is how you should talk to audience. This kind of vocabulary resonates with them more versus less. And uh, probably what that would mean as a next step, and this is definitely secret sauce, is that I build a custom GPT for you that can be essentially a really solid first draft copywriter that will help either the client or my team to write copy, whether it's for ads or for landing pages or for emails that are going to have that highly validated messaging for the client.
Cool.
And then we can go use that to indeed go write more landing pages and emails to, like, if you were a coach, to go book calls, or if you are an info products, to go sell more of your info products, courses, and
Awesome.
stuff like that. Yeah.
So I want to root this now. So this is really cool. And I think we could go a step further. So I'm going to pull up my screen share just to drive these further home before I share the idea that you've probably already thought of anyway. So you can see my screen. Yeah, you've seen this service offering thermometer thingy before, yes?
Mhm.
So for all of these, I just want to like root them. Like, because what's cool about this is that all of these can be rooted in multiple. And for some of them, though, I just kind of want to hear you articulate what you think maybe the sexiest antitheses are. So in other words, you say you have validated audiences to run ads to a meta. But what we didn't speak to is what happens if you don't do that, right? Like what happens if I didn't do the atomic testing and I just, said freelancers or something? Or if I don't have a messaging doc that says how to talk to my audience, like what's going to happen if I just go with my gut and put it on my sales page? So basically, like, I'm just curious, if you peel back the onion layer, one more layer on all of these, what do you think is going to motivate the person to care about this thing the most? So first question for you, Bo. Validated audiences to run ads to on Meta / the risky danger pain of running ads without this kind of pre-validated audience. Presumably that's just going to tie into paying more per lead, I assume? Or
Yeah.
what do you think? What do you think is the big motivator there?
Yeah, no, that's definitely it. You're more likely um, to waste a bunch of time, energy, and money to build a lead magnet and a campaign to, you know, generate leads and turn those leads into sales, right? Because that's, for most of my clients, that's what they want to do. You're very likely to uh, build something in the dark and essentially come out the other side with something that doesn't actually work. But this actually happened with one of my long-term client, the coach that I work with. He was like, "I've got this really great idea for a quiz, a lead magnet, and I'm so excited about it, and I want to build it up." And I pushed back immediately. I'm like, "I don't think this is going to work. I don't think that this actually matches with the needs of your ICP." And he said, "Bo, you might think that, but I think it's going to work. So let's go for it." And I said, "You know what? Fine, we'll do it." And it took us, like, between building out the lead magnet, building out the campaigns, building out the email follow-ups and all of that stuff, probably about a month. Started running it, totally flopped. And now we're basically a month down the line where we didn't move the needle, or we got some learnings, but ultimately, didn't get more sales from we didn't get leads. We barely got any leads. And we obviously, if you don't have a lot of leads to turn into sales, then, your conversion is going to look really low for the money that you spent.
Don't waste an ass load of time on lead. Ass load of time building lead magnets that people don't end up wanting. What do you think sexiest bullet point number 3 would be? So I've got down sexy bullet point number 1, get cheaper leads, like on average XYZ% cheaper than if you didn't do this first. I think that'd be cool if you have enough data to say that. And then 2, don't waste an ass load of time building lead magnets that people don't end up wanting, which that was what really intrigued me, because I have to build the lead magnet soon for like the 200 KF funnel. And I'm like, I've got a lot of ideas for it, but with every idea, you make it first and then see how it converts. And
Yeah.
what I wanted to ask you that I think would be, by the way, just to make it clear what I'm angling towards, let me make a pause because I'm gathering so much context that you might have lost the thread. What I'm angling towards here is that I think it'd be a really cool lead magnet for you, Bo, the agency owner, to essentially teach your whole process. And so these bullet points, these 3 sexy bullet points that I'm trying to extract, would be like the 3 sexy bullet points for your opt-in page or your cold emails that you send to people or whatever. But the thing that inspired that idea was that if you can have a piece of content that is both a piece of conversion content for you to close potential clients, but also a piece of core pillar training content for people that you're hiring, then you win in so many ways. Because, and this is why I got the idea in the first place. Because what I was going to say is that if you had a paid project where you basically just have somebody watch your lead magnet videos, like you have somebody learn your atomic ads process, and you learn how to apply the insights from atomic ad testing to decide on a lead magnet or whatever it is you want to evaluate. You have them watch all that stuff, and then you share the context of an atomic ad testing results. And then you say, okay, so based on this, what lead magnets do you think we should run and why? At that point, they should, if they're good, they should have gotten everything they need from you to pass your test and give you good ideas. And so if they do that and they give you bad ideas, then probably they're not going to fit, or you just made a bad trial project or whatever. But yeah, when you can nail it, it's really, really cool, because then you get to like kill all these birds with the same stone. Poor birds. What do you think about that? Like, have you thought about doing something like that?
Well, before I answer your question, Zach, I like to use the metaphor, instead of killing birds with stones, I like to say feeding birds with scones.
That's much better. Yeah, you get to feed three birds with one scone.
Yeah, there you go.
But I feel like the thing is, a scone should always feed a bunch of birds. Like, scones are pretty big relative to birds.
Exactly. It's true. It's just less violent.
Brutal. Yeah. By the way, can I put this on the podcast? This is like really good.
Yeah, sure.
I think people like this.
Yeah.
Okay, so birds with scones. Yeah,
honestly, like I think that would be, we could feed a lot of birds with this one scone, is that I can actually just like go through the entire process of even like building out the ICP with ChatGPT, so that like you get a really solid first iteration right before you ever even run a test, and it gives you a bunch of ideas to go test. Yeah, and then you give me that recording, and then I can have it be my training plus my infill product to go sell or something.
If we can get all that scope done in 32 minutes before the next call, I'm down.
Yeah.
So the first question is, what's sexy bullet number 3? So if the first one is cheaper leads, which, by the way, based on having done that told you so test with that client, or seeing performance with campaigns you ran prior to this, like, what do you have a substantiatable metric of what percent on average cheaper it is if you run ads to leads who you already did this process for, when you're considering A, better targeting, and B, better lead magnet sent, and C, better copy? I mean, there's so many factors that's hard to say, but like, what's a safe, substantiatable, not bullshit number of how much cheaper the leads will be?
Yeah, I mean, well, sometimes I do a rescue, like come in to do a rescue, right, for a campaign that's already running. So in that case, we already have a lead magnet that we basically already know that's working, right? To some degree, like people are interested, but maybe the way that it's presented, or the way, like in terms of the ad itself, is not hitting the nail on the head, or maybe the audience isn't so good, right? So then I can apply this process to an existing campaign. And again, for this same client, they were paying, over the course of the 2 years that they were running this particular campaign, this lead magnet, first they were getting leads of around $40-$50, and then over the course of that time, it kind of crept towards $80 per lead on LinkedIn, which for a lot of businesses is actually still a relatively cheap CPL. But when I came in and using the exact same creatives, but just tweaking the messaging and doing a bit of audience research and using the process that I would use for atomic ad testing, we got that CPL down to $5 per lead. That's a substantial reduction. So that's only one case study, right? But yeah, that's the way that it could work.
I mean, I definitely believe it. Like, I am a Facebook ads noob, but once I took some proper training, and I learned from Zach Spuckler, and he did, I think it was 2x2 or 4x4 or something. So a couple creatives, a couple copy, long form, short form. Like, he's very unsophisticated with his process, but but still iterating that and stuff. I got CPLs of one campaign versus another that was like a fifth or something of the other, a tenth of the other, and a lot of people don't see it through. So I definitely believe it. So if you think this is substantiatable, I think it's awesome. So sexy bullet number one, get cheaper leads, and then average 10x cheaper. I think that's fair to say, or however a human would articulate it to understand it. 10x cheaper is kind of like weird to conceptualize, but saying average 10% the cost of what would be otherwise is even more difficult to articulate.
You could say it. You can get times more leads for the same budget.
Yeah, cool. So I'll make a note of that. And then sexy thing number two, don't waste a bunch of time building lead magnets people don't end up wanting. So you get to reclaim like months or whatever. But what's sexy bullet number three? So the takeaways that we had written down were you get validated audiences to run ads to. You get a clear lead magnet and list of next ones. You get a messaging doc that says this is how you should talk to your audience with the kind of vocab that resonates with them. And you build that custom GPT. So maybe sexy bullet point number three would be something that's like, okay. And remember, the framing here is when you do this atomic ads testing process and you actually implement the insights you get these three sexy bullet points. So what do you think the third sexy bullet point would be that's like something tangible oriented around maybe copy conversion or something that comes from that messaging aspect, ICP resonance?
In my offering, really the next step in this process is to now, once you've got those leads in the door, actually make the sale. And since you have that validated messaging, assuming you have a strong offer, right? Now we can use that messaging doc to create the solid emails, the nurtures, right? To take people to the next step, which in the case of a coach would likely be booking that first call to get somebody into the program or whatever it is that they're selling. And so for me, sexy bullet point number three is, I don't know how to wordsmith this exactly off the top of my head, but like, hey, now you have high lead volume, ideally high quality leads if we've done the audience testing correctly, and now you're going to get more sales or more calls and thus more sales.
Well, presumably their closing rate on the calls themselves and the closing rate of their sales pages would also be higher too. Like
exactly. Yeah.
Do you have any metrics showing that?
Not
if you don't, you can just keep it fluffy.
Yeah, not really a ton of solid stuff. The client that I'm working with, right, like again, the executive coach, they've been giving some pushback in terms of how to engineer the process. And what I mean by that is like, I want to create more friction where we make the lead prove to us that they're actually a great fit. And right now they're like, get anybody on a call. We get as many calls as we want. But that means that the show up rate is less. And even though when people show up on a call, I think they're selling at like 40, 50%. But in an ideal world, we get their show up rate right now is 30% to be at 80%. Right. So I would be helping them build their funnel in such a way that we get ready to buy people on the call consistently.
Yeah, that makes sense. So maybe with this one, the way that you do it is what I typed into chat, which is that instead of trying to substantiate it with direct metrics, which number one, you don't have yet, and number two are kind of hard to track anyway, because this is like at the bottom of the funnel. So it always has the lowest throughput. And so it's hard to get really strong metrics. If someone closes 10 calls versus 12, is it really 20% different, or is it just a data size of 10 versus 12? So maybe the way that you substantiate it is just that like you naturally will have copy that converts better on a sales page or scripts that'll convert better on your sales calls because you already have these ads that are converting better due to the ICP resonance. So if you take that same ICP resonance gain and apply it to this other thing, it naturally will similarly convert better. Like I think most people wouldn't push back on that. Like it's a very reasonable, logical leap. So I think finding a way to articulate that sounds cool. So my question for you though is regarding your testing process, how do you, and this is the part that I want to extract from you as somebody who's interested in your knowledge, how do you How do you test lead magnet ideas without promising a lead magnet that doesn't exist yet, and thereby kind of like bait and switching people? And then they're like, hey, who's this fucking person who said there's this ebook? There's no ebook, blah, blah, blah. How do you do that? Because that sounds interesting
Yeah,
to me.
yeah. Great question. My this sounds a little mischievous, I suppose, but what I have found is that uh, a lot of people, the are goldfishes, especially on social media, right? That goldfish memories, they'll click on something on an ad and go up on a landing page and basically already forget what it is that they clicked on. So if you show them some resource that's somewhat related to what it is that you're promising, they will likely engage with it anyway.
Mm.
So
So the sales page or the conversion page, opt-in page, is for a real lead magnet that does exist. It's just not the same one that was on the ad, and you're using the ad's click-through rate to determine interest, not the actual conversion rate of the opt-in page. Is that right?
yeah, exactly. So
Cool.
when we're in the lead magnet title testing phase, the landing page is either going to be an existing lead magnet if they have one that's relevant, or a generic newsletter page, because that's really easy to build out if they
Cool.
don't already have it.
So how far do you go? Like, for example, with 200K freelancer, with that funnel, I've thought of a few different lead magnet ideas. One might be like a live sprint where we like literally do the kind of 200K phase one stuff like together in a couple hours or something to try to help people push through that sticking point that a lot of people get stuck on. Especially if I have like AI trained models and things like that, like we can just like really shove through it. So that's like one idea. Another one would be, like an email course like we do with Charge What You're Worth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so I'm curious how far you go, because if it was like, let's say we were testing the positioning around get more clients. This
Mhm.
one with the current DYF funnel is the most mischievous for you to test, right? Because Charge What You're Worth isn't about getting more clients. It's about like positioning yourself. So to make that leap where it's like, hey, learn how to get more clients finding you, click add. And it's like, hey, learn how to convert your current leads better. Like that's number one, that's hard. But then number two, suppose I had something more generic and close, which is like, get on the email list and you're going to learn all sorts of shit, including how to get more clients. But the lead magnet still is like very different than that. If it's like, get this step-by-step course, click, get on the newsletter. How do you navigate things like that?
Yeah. I I feel like you're still asking me like the same question you asked before, which is how do you, is it a bait and switch, right? Um, but I think at this point, like I'm not really building out full courses. So with clients, it's often like a quiz or a quick checklist or a PDF. So it is a little bit like less effort. And actually, like the the guardrail that I put on the kind of lead magnets that we're testing is that you could actually go and build it in less than 24 hours and produce it once you have the right data.
Mm,
So that means where I'm testing right now, where I want to put the most focus on in terms of the kind of lead magnets that we're creating is quizzes, because it's something for somebody to engage in and actually gets us even more data on the audience. So it's basically like right message style segmentation,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's cool.
So ideally, you create a quiz that creates an outcome that categorizes your leads so that you understand like even deeper what it is that they're looking for, what they're struggling with, and B, then have a couple different outcomes that you could then write emails for and whatnot. So and we would build that quiz with the end intent of like whatever the outcome is, that the natural next step that you would show on the thank you page is the product that you're actually selling, whether that's a call or if it's like an info product like a course, that it would be the course. Uh, yeah, does that make sense?
It does. And so the takeaway I'm getting is that the bait and switch thing, you just, even in that situation I mentioned, you just wouldn't worry about it. But you would never prescribe such a large scope to your clients, it sounds like, anyway.
Right. Like if I think like building out a course, like even a free course, I think that it can work, but even like all the marketers that I learned from at this point, they're saying it's not something they would recommend doing, just because essentially if you're running a course as a lead magnet, like a free mini course, you're essentially waiting for somebody to go through it and build that know, like, and trust with you. And there's like 100 ways that they could drop out right then and there, or like as they go through it. So in now, yeah, again, like knowing that people are more or less goldfish, especially given even like AI has made this worse in that people can just get the instant answer, right? So why would they say do your course? Like they really have to find the motivation for that. So we want to try to shorten the funnel. And if you can deliver some value with like a quiz, like read this, read that, come with like 3 or 4 different 4 or 5 different outcomes, then yeah, ideally, because of what you've already learned during the messaging, you know how to talk to that person um, with what it is that they want, and like position your actual product as a solution to the problem that they're facing. So the lead magnet that we're often building is around problems that people are having, and for which your product is the natural solution.
Cool. That makes sense. So let's root this then in where I was going with all this stuff, which was I was going to ask what a person you're hiring would need to know in order to ingest metrics from a past client campaign and synthesize those metrics successfully into the kinds of outcomes that someone you're hiring needs to be able to synthesize them into. Because the main question I'd have for you is, do you think when you're trying to hire somebody to run ads, do you think the big challenge is finding somebody with the technical skills to, or the technical / persuasive skills to decide on A/B tests? So that's one, like, I guess, strategic mind to conceptualize A/B tests and atomic tests and what to test. 2, technical skills to actually implement those tests and like not be wrong about what the data means. Or 3, take the data and like extrapolate that and synthesize that into decisions about lead magnets, decisions about ICP and stuff. Which of those 3 things do you think your biggest challenge for hiring is?
I think it is 3, and
Okay.
then I think it requires an understanding of the process that we're going through.
Perfect.
Right. Of
So
like
then
what
it
it is
is
that's
worth
AutoCAD
what we're
testing.
talking about.
Mhm.
Cool.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
what would somebody need then if you, let's say you just did a big old export of your Facebook ads campaign, you blurred out the stuff that's like sensitive to the client or whatever, and you needed to teach somebody enough of your process for them to be able to reasonably and reliably extract the right insights. Like, what are the bullet points of like things they need to understand? Like, so you see that headline A, which according to your Notion doc or Craft doc or wherever you decided how to make headline A, presumably you'd have to share that strategy too, right? So you share core strategy, you share what you ran, you share what the outputs were. How does the person know, okay, the headline A that said, hey, are you lazy? Versus the headline B that said, hey, do you procrastinate? Procrastination won, and they see that the core motivator was blah, blah, blah. What do they need to know in order to take that and reliably decide on a lead magnet idea from it?
Right. So likely what I would make for them is like a quick room, or even like a 10-minute room, to just like educate them on what it is. And like for what it's worth, I'm happy to pay somebody even 3 hours to like wrap their head around this and get what it is that we're doing so that they can go through the tests, right? Um, but anyway, so what I would probably show them is this graph plus the SOP, and just be like, hey, this is the process that we're going through. I've ideated an ICP based off of everything that I've learned about the client. And we have ran 15 problem statements, and I will show the creatives that we ran, for example. When we ran that test, we're only limiting it to $50 or 50 whatever. Sometimes I do $70. And what I'm looking for is to see which creatives had greater than 2% click-through rate and had relatively low cost per click. So once I've gotten those problem statements, right, and then can you see this Google Doc or Google Sheet?
Yeah.
Great. So this is actually the lead magnets, but I tested this against 3 different audiences, and I see that this And the lead magnet was something along the lines of, take this quiz. Why did life feel harder for you? And we see that for the lookalike audience, that got like a 3%. So now I guess I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but ultimately then I would say like, well, hey, great. That's running a lot better than learn how to make your own operating manual, or like what's stopping your workflow. I see that behind burnout works largely across most of these audiences. So that might also be interesting to work out. Now I'm kind of actually giving away what I want them to do. So again, have to take a step back and make sure to share what I need to share.
Yeah. So let's indeed take that step back. So I would guess, and this is where I want to make sure I'm on the same page, because everybody does things differently. Everybody conceptualizes lead magnets differently. But if I were just intuitively going about this as somebody who knows very little in this space, much less than you, my rationale would be that I would basically theorize. So if I know the course is 200K freelancer, and that fundamentally the reason people take this thing is because they want more clients, I would probably theorize a few core motivations that I think would drive people most. So one of them is like, okay, you got fired by a whale client. I know a lot of people run into that. So that's like one thing to test. Another one would be like, I don't know, they have the roller coaster up and down months. So I'd maybe make like 3 or 4 or 5 of these hypotheses, and I would then create a bunch of ads that are pushing towards one of these kind of persuasive hypotheses. And then whichever of those hypotheses is the winner would inform my positioning. But I'm not sure that any of those would inform the lead magnet itself. And it seems like the lead magnet itself would be not like an extrapolated decision, and it would instead be just literally, we actually made a pseudo lead magnet, and that pseudo lead magnet converted best. So there's not really anything to like synthesize. You just literally say that's the one to do. Or like, I guess that's my question though, is what do they need to know and do to get from this data dump into the right decision? Like, how do you decide based on what we're seeing here, what to do?
But actually, I think what I would probably ask them to do is, instead of being like, okay, we see that feels harder, is like, okay, clearly for this lookalike audience, this is the lead magnet to run, right? I think that's like the sort of the obvious thing, or we might even say like, okay, we see maybe here's 3 lead magnet ideas that performed above the 2% gradient that we have, right? Now I might say, go and here are all the lead magnet titles. Now, and here's the description of the ICP. Go to ChatGPT and develop a messaging doc for me. Essentially, that says, why do we think that this messaging resonated, right? And what do the worst performers have in common together, right? Like, what can we learn from that in terms of messaging? So, for example, here, and so yeah, this is something like, this is like, it's an ads manager, and maybe I'm asking too much from an ads manager here to synthesize what we've learned from these lead magnets, or from this testing route, to kind of create like a short, like, okay, here's how we should talk to somebody now. Does that make sense? Or do you think that's asking too much?
I don't think it is, as long as you had a template, which it sounds like you do. But the one question I would have, the thing that often gets me stuck with Facebook ads, is you don't really, like, so much of how Facebook ads work these days seems to be about hidden, invisible algorithmic learning on Facebook's side, and that it seems to me that you could often run the same copy in creative and it would perform wildly differently because of like just the randomness factor of it starting to hit a good vein and then drilling into that behind the scenes segmentation. So how do you address that with this process here? Like, how do you know that you're drawing a safe conclusion versus you just got a bad targeting algorithm behind the scenes and it wasn't even about the copy?
Yeah, that's, I think that there's a risk there for sure. Not gonna lie about that. I think what we're trying to do here is just increase the chances of success, right? So the way that I run these tests, and the problem that you would have if you just let Meta or Google or whatever run its course is that it's going to choose the ad that it thinks is performing the best and then just start putting all of the budget behind that. So to overcome that issue, what we're doing is after it's 1,000 impressions, turning off that ad and then telling Meta now continue to put ad budget in all of those other. And that way you get sort of similar data across all of the different ads that you're running. Now, the only issue with that is that maybe one ad gets shown more on a Monday and another ad gets shown more on a Tuesday. And so you like ultimately these results would not probably pass the bar of statistically significant and like hardcore, but that's not really the purpose here. It's that we're trying to, in the shortest time possible, with the minimum amount of ad spend, to increase the chances of success versus fully like having like fully bulletproof messaging. And once we've gotten to that point of like increasing the chance of success, is that we can actually go back and continue to do that testing and retest our.
So then that said, I mean, that makes sense, and I agree with that. With that said, my question would be, if you're having, so let me just put this in the chat just so I have it down so I don't forget. If you're having somebody as a trial project interpret these results and synthesize them into something actionable, I would think that the main thing that would be needed in order for this to be a good trial project is, so number one, they need the context about what the ads were. So they need the copy and creatives, which it sounds like you can just give them all. Number two, they need the context of how they converted, which this spreadsheet here gives them that. And then number three, so what the ads were, how they converted, and then like why you made them. So they would need some sort of strategy document in saying that we're making feels, the one underscore feels harder. The rationale behind that ad was that we believe blah, blah, blah. So they would need that. And then they would need to understand your testing process, which that flow chart you showed me where it's like test all these things would give them. And then they would need a template for what they are supposed to extract from it in terms of insights. Like, so instead of just saying, hey, take all this, put it into ChatGPT and think of how the copy could be better. You could do that, or think of what the commonalities are between what's wrong. You could do that, but it feels to me a little bit open-ended. And I think what would be much better if it's like, take all this, put it into ChatGPT, blah, blah, blah. But we need you to fill out these 5 questions on the top, and these 5 questions, like these 5 positive questions, these 5 negative questions. And then what I would do, Bo, in that technical guides course that I linked you to for the hiring thing and the trial projects, what I would do in my Notion where I created this trial project is in my private Zach notes one. So basically when I create these trial projects, I make a parent project where it's like just for my own eyes, where I say all the shit that I'm supposed to look for in their trial projects. I'm like, okay, you should make sure they did blah, blah, blah. If they didn't talk about blah, 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 that's like -1 point. And then as a child of that, it's the actual trial project I send them. So I would do something where it's like, if I were doing this as Bo for this specific campaign, answer 1 would definitely, it needs to say something about the fact that people clearly are like feeling a lot of internal conflict or something, like whatever you would say. The thing that you believe that anyone going through this who doesn't suck would say, you would make a note about that. So that, to me, that's the goal here, is like structured outputs and then your own rubric of what needs to be said in that for this person to be like getting a point in your own little scoring thing. Do you have a template like that? It looks like maybe this doc is that, or
yeah, I could certainly create something like that. Like probably what if I was going with the lead magnet title test, or like where I am at this stage, right? So this was the problem statement testing, like, hey, ICP call out, true or false, what resonates most, right? Like I could share something like this and then be like, hey, this is what we produced for the client in the prior step. Now you need to, here's a template for what you need to create, which is what additional learnings did we have from the messaging, and why do we think that works. What I can also do with this is take screenshots of the audiences that are behind this and be like, give them the insight in terms of how we set this up. And then be like, based on this, also like what kind of audiences would you want to test next, or what would you iterate on? Because like for me, just because this audience got 2% overall and this one got 1.6% doesn't mean that we should throw this audience out. It just means that we can iterate on it and try out different things. So I think that would be really cool for an ads manager to be able to tell me what their thinking process is.
That's cool.
Especially because that's where I have a personal limitation in my knowledge, and somebody showing me that they're like, they know how to think through that would be incredibly useful.
Nice. Then what I would say, a couple parting words before we go, just because we got the next call in a second. I would say that, so in the chat, I typed like essentially 3 steps of what, if you were to make a mini course for your own agency that like a potential client would sign up for, it would be the deliverables, like the actual scope of that mini course would be essentially step 1, you'd have to show them how to do the atomic testing process, which I'm not going to go into it because that would be very deep and you probably wouldn't want to do that in your course, but maybe you explain it strategically or whatever. But in order for your whole process to be executed, someone has to know step 1, how to actually do it, like what ads to run, why to run it, whatever. Step 2, how to understand the results and know that it's time to move on, which is essentially what that flow chart you showed me is. The one where it's like, you do this until you get 2%, then you're good to move on. And then step 3, which is the only thing that's actually needed right now for your hiring test project, is how to take action on the results. So it's essentially saying, okay, now you need to go look at all your ads, you look at the conversion rates, and you need to fill out this template. And here's how you decide what to fill out. You look at the thing you did in step 1, where you like did your planning around the ICP and your theories. You look at the ad stats, and then you fill this form field out based on what you think, based on blah, 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 blah. So if right now, Bo, you were to just create that step 3 training, you essentially have 1/3 of your eventual lead magnet if you want it. But most importantly, you have training that you could give to like somebody who you hired who has already had step 1 and 2 done by you in advance for this client and just needs to do step 3. And then the other thing I wanted to say, because this is a 3-hour paid trial project, what I would recommend is slotting a first pass little mini trial in front of it. So sometimes that mini trial might just be literally you show them something on your screen, like, or you show them some of this stuff from the past campaign and you have them shoot you a Loom video explaining blah, blah, blah thing and why they do it. So it should be like a 5-minute Loom and you tell them all the things to answer. That way you can not, like if someone's $50 an hour at 3 hours, like that's $150. If you put 20 candidates through that and 18 of them suck because they were just like really, really bad, that's not ideal. So those are a couple parting thoughts on it. I know we went down this rabbit hole. I don't even know you want to talk about today. I don't know if this was the main thing you wanted to get my feedback on, but hopefully this is a little bit helpful for scaling as you hire and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. This is super helpful. I think this is super helpful. I think for me, like big picture is like the clients that I'm working with now, I'm still very in the weeds with them. And where I want to come back to 200K freelancer as a course is to work out how I can build out this offer so that it's like really focused on that versus me also going in and helping do technical audits of someone's website and all this other like marketing stuff, right? Because it's not very repeatable, it takes a lot of my time, and like I can teach this process to a solid team and make me be less necessary in it, right? So I think that's another really big selling point to me for developing this into a mini course that I can teach my team.
Yeah, and I think I think there are 4 or 5 birds who will end up getting fed from the same scone if you think about it. And this is what had me go down this rabbit hole with you and why I feel like it's definitely worth it to think about. Because if you're running cold outreach for your own agency, some of those things you showed me on the screen are really cool as lead magnets anyway, like that flow chart and you showing how you do it, or you training a custom free GPT for them based on like some publicly available assets on their website. Like there's so many things you could do that would feel really valuable and high touch, but that you could fulfill very easily. So that's 4th bird from the scone. And then 5th bird is that if you ever wanted to long-term do that Zach Spuckler model. He's from Heart Soul Hustle. I don't know if it's .com, but he basically teaches how to run ads for your business and has an ads agency. And it strikes me that this kind of proprietary process you've outlined here would work well as like a one-to-many thing, just there to get people to ascend into done-for-you services. Like they could take a workshop or whatever to get to know you and then pay for your agency model or whatever. So yeah, I got to bounce. Are you coming to the marketing call or is this it?
Got a client call I got to jump to. So
okay.
Thank you so much for the time. This has been awesome.
Yeah, likewise. I made a note to stop sharing your screen on the 50-minute mark with the podcast stuff, but otherwise, are you good for this going up there?
Yeah, definitely. And if you want to run another recorded call on building ICPs that anyone in 200K free, I know you have a process for that, but I might be able to speed it up for some people. Maybe that's something we can just ideate on later.
Yeah, for sure. That'd be fun sometime. Cool.
All right,
so great chatting.
Cool catching up.
Likewise. See ya. So what a good interview, eh? I ask you right now, let's take a moment and think about it while we're here. What's one actionable idea, insight thingy that hearing Bo and I chat brought up for you with your business? When you're thinking about scaling, when you're thinking about hiring, when you're thinking about your client acquisition process, what things that you learned today do you want to like swipe and deploy into your business? Anything? Anything that you think you're doing better than us at? Anything that you think you're doing worse than us at and you want to tweak? Anything that's just totally random, like you realized you forgot to get milk because we were talking about scones and scones are made with milk and you don't have milk? Like what came up for you? I want to know. Think about that and then ask yourself what you can do to start implementing that this week. It's been great hanging out with you and see you in the next one. Hopefully not after such a long amount of time. I feel confident. I'm going to finish this freaking SaaS product soon. I was checking my toggle logs. Let me share my screen. So this is my screen share. I started this project in February. I was on a holiday and I was like, oh my gosh, it's going to be so fun. I could just make it in 2 seconds, vibe code it, take no time at all, make this cool SaaS for my students. Here we are now, mid-September, 1,637 hours on this ClientForge and LeadTables thing. But I'm really excited because even though it's taking a bunch of time, it's going to help students really cut down the amount of time it takes them to build their funnels to get clients coming in. So my goal with it is to get people from 2 months, which is what a lot of people spend right now for like their first list building and their marketing campaigns and stuff, get it from like 2 months to 2 hours. That's my goal. If I can do that, the 1,600 hours pays itself off quickly. If we think of all the time it saves you multiplied by all the students, boof. But yeah, so that said, that's why I've been slacking so much on content, and I'm sorry. But once I get this thing done, I can have space in my life for like, you know, going outside, making content, etc. But yeah, all that said, thanks for being here. See you in the next one. And if you want to get on the 200K freelancer waitlist, you'll get free credits and exclusive access to this ClientForge and LeadTables product. No one else can even enroll in it right now. And I'll be giving some cool bonuses to get people using it and getting the value out of it. So if you wanted to get on the waitlist, that's the best way to ensure you can get in the next cohort and get access to this cool ass SaaS product that I spent 1,600 hours making. To do that, you can go to dyf.link/200KF, 200KF, dyf.link/200KF. With that, I'll leave you until the next time. Thanks for being here. See you when I see you.